Hi, I'm Sandy from Lightning Tools, and I'm here again with Brett. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah,
Great,
not bad at all.
good.
So
Yeah,
how's things in Florida?
still hot.
Yeah,
I was watching a
still
really big lizard in the lawn this morning, so that's always interesting. There are little lizards running all over the place, but there
so
was
not
one.
alligator size.
No, not here. I'm sure there are in the canal in the backyard, but still though, this one was like this long in the grass. So that's the
Oh
first time
wow,
I've seen one quite that big. It's not an iguana, but just like a big one of these little lizards. There was one in the
very
kitchen
cool.
yesterday, not a really big one, but a regular size small one. So just have to get used to that.
That's awesome.
You
Very
have
cool.
hedgehogs and stuff there though, right? Not
We do.
lizards, but
Yeah, nothing too exciting.
that just seems like the completely British thing to me is hedgehogs, because we don't
Well,
have
yeah,
anything like that.
you usually see them just when they've been hit by a car. You
Oh,
normally see them otherwise.
oh.
Yeah, but yeah, they all seem to come and play on the road at night, apparently.
Yeah, here what comes on the road at night is cane toads, which are evil. Those are the things that squirt venom out of their heads.
Yeah.
Any Anyway, back to lightning tools. So last week we were talking about the new document generator that we're offering as an add-on to Lightning Forms, which sounded really cool. And so this week, I guess we're going to take a look at that, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, what I can do is share my screen and we can go through it. So for those of you who are not that familiar with Lightning Forms, first of all, what I'll do is just go through and generate a new item so you can see how we can go through and complete a form using two different SharePoint lists that have been combined into one form. So, Sandy, if you're going to make an expense claim, then we could use a form like this, which just like what you would have in InfoPath, really is a form with maybe what they used to call a repeating table. We call that a sublist, which is actually another SharePoint list embedded that is joined via a lookup column. So what I could do is complete this form and just familiarize you with that. So we can put in your first name, your last name. I could have this, if I wanted to, just automatically generate your full name. I can put in your email and things like that. So now you're going to get more spam. There we go. And we can put in any other details. We've got here things like location. So you're in the US, so we can pick from departments in the US. And notice how that differs. If I was to choose UK, we see some different
Mm.
departments in the UK here and so on. So we've got some cascading lookups and things like that, which are really useful. Yeah, I'll choose one of those, and then down at the bottom here we can actually go through and make some expense claims. So notice how that opens up a separate panel for the sublist, which is great because you've now got the ability to add lots of validation rules and things like that on there using the Lightning Forms, which back in classic Lightning Forms, the sublist was almost like a data grid on the
Hmm.
you'd fill it out that way, and that way you couldn't really capture all the validation stuff because it was a separate form. So in here we'll put in a description which might be flight, and we can choose the date of that flight, and then choose what category, what cost category we're going to put that in. So whatever it might be, I don't know, I'm just going to choose one at random, and we can put in the value of that. So that gets saved, and notice it gets written out to the sub item. And so, yeah, once we've saved that, we could save the expenses or we could submit the expenses and so on. And one of the things that we might want to do is actually open that up. And of course, it could go through an approval process and things like that. So there is an approval tab. Notice we've got the expense claim limit here and the total expenses, which is not exceeding that. By the way, when we do exceed it, it does some color formatting as well. So it highlights that, as we, I think, spoke about last week. But what's new here is the fact that we can also now generate a document. So, of course, an expense report like this may need to be shared, or you may want to take a copy of it or something like that, rather than relying on opening it up from directly within inside a SharePoint. So what I can do now is just click onto print, which is a button that I created. And that will go through and generate a document. So you'll notice down on the left-hand side here, we've got a document created called Expense Report 45. I created that file name dynamically, so it's taking the item ID and then concatenating it to the words expense report. So we could, take any fields off of that form. It may be first name and last name, or something like that. But yeah, if I open that up, and it's just opened up on my other screen, so I'm going to drag that across here. And as you can see, we've got Sandy UC. It's saying currently status is false for the approval. I could actually get that to say approved or rejected, or pending, or something like that, using an if statement inside the Word document, and we'll talk about how to do that in just a moment. But we've got the claim amount, which is the 1,000, so that's been aggregated up from the sub item, and you can see that sub item is also displayed in there as well.
So that would display multiple ones if there were.
Yeah, and we can have a look at that. So some of these actually do have multiple ones. So if I go into Carter, for example, that's just one, actually, maybe under me. So yeah, there we go. So I've got 3 expenses here that I'm claiming for. And if we look here at the approval tab, notice the expense claim limit again hasn't been exceeded, and so on. So if I was to go through and print that one, which isn't actually printing, it's just opening it up in Word, so I could print it in a nice format, or I could save it as PDF and all that sort of thing. But yeah, you can see here how we've got the 3 items displayed, and again, they're being aggregated up here into that claim amount. And this one was approved, so notice the status is true, and we can also see who it was approved by and the approval date as well. Okay, so yeah, that's the type of thing that we can do. Now let's have a look at how that's actually created. So it's using a Word document, which just bear with me. Let's have that open somewhere. Yep, here it is. So we'll drag that across. There we are. So on the field, sorry, on the form, you'll see different fields which we can use placeholders for to bring them into the document. So notice how we have full name in double square brackets or braces. We have line manager, approved, etc. And also approval date and approved by are in there as well. And then in the sublist, this is just a regular table, but it has a loop because it's got to loop through several different items. We're using a loop statement followed by the name of the sublist, which in this case is expense items, followed by the columns that we want to display in the relevant columns in the table. And then we end the loop as well on that date of expense. So like I said, besides loop, you've also got if statements and things like that you could build into the document if you wanted to also. So yeah, that's how it's created. So it's just a regular Word document. And once you're ready, you can go through and create an action. And that action can be created in a couple of different ways. So you can add it using Lightning Forms, or you can also add it using Lightning List Actions. So if I was to go into the design of the form, you can see here we've got the display form. So I'd say maybe you want to only create this on the display form or the edit form, because of course it's got to have the values saved. So I've created mine on the display form. So as I go, yeah, absolutely. It may be that you want to customize the save button on the new form. So maybe you did want to save it, submit it, and print it. In which case you could do that. You just string those 3 actions together. So your first action would be a save, next action may be a send mail, and then the third action could be a generate document. So yeah, this is the design of the form, and you can see here we can go in and configure expressions against each of the different fields. And as I bring up the expression builder here, you can see all the different fields that I've got making up my form, as well as under sublists, we've got the name of the sublist, which is expense items. And as I expand that, I've also got the columns that make up that expense items sublist as well. So you'll notice if ever you're unsure about the actual name that you want to use on the Word document, you can just hover over and it will show it in the tooltip. So some of these are going off the screen or are outside of the dialog. So that way you'll be able to see the full programmatic name and not just the display name. But they're the values that we want to put onto the Word document as a placeholder. And then against the button here, so this is the custom button called print. And if I was to go into my command bar buttons and edit that button, notice that you can choose different icons. We may want to change this to say open in Word or something like that. And we can choose when it's going to be visible or when it's going to be enabled. So maybe if we only want certain people to be able to print it, we could do that type of thing. And in fact, that's a new feature as well. So what we used to have, and I think we spoke about this last week as well, was under the user, we could say, the user is a member of a group, and that was a SharePoint group, but now we can actually say he's a member of a Azure Active Directory group as well. So if you had a managers group or something, you could use that. So when I configure the actions, you'll see here that this is just doing one action. And like I say, you could string multiple actions together. So if I wanted to do that save first, if I was doing this on the new form, I could just basically go through and say save form and make sure that is occurring before the generate document. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to reference any fields. And there is also things like send email and things like that that you could also choose from and map the fields together that way. Whoops. Let me just cancel that. I just deleted the wrong one. There we go. So let's just open that up. There's the generate document. So under generate document, we choose that action. We give it a name. We upload the template, and that goes into a document library.
Where is that?
That is a good question. So it's a hidden library. It is somewhere in the site. I can't recall. But you can get to it from here as well. So you can always open up the current template. Now, when you're generating that document, we can generate it for a single item or multiple items. So mine's generating for a single item. If I generate it for multiple items, notice that we can build out a query here. And that's a camel query, but we get some help with like a query builder, if you like. So in here we could put the criteria as to which items to select. So it might be that we want to print off all of the items that have not been approved yet, or something like that. You can build a query to apply to all of those. I'm going to do it for a single item. So we've specified the list that we're working against, which is the master list. In this case, so that's expense report. And then we've got to be able to recognize which item to open. So all I'm doing here is using that expression builder again to pass through the identifier, the ID, or list item ID, as the unique value to open up this one particular expense report. Now, I don't have to mention the sublist in here at all. It's just going against the master record. And then when we open it up, we can either save that as a saved document into a document library, or we can also open it up in the browser. So I'm opening it up in the browser, and this is the file name that I'm giving to it. So expense report followed by the ID, and then just guarantees that you're going to get a unique name for that particular report. So that's it. That's how you go through and generate those.
Right. Could you put something like a timestamp?
Yeah, absolutely. So here under template, this allows me to join different fields together and things like that. If I wanted to put the current time, then you could switch to function code, use the new date function, and append that to the actual file name as well. So yeah,
I know that's something a lot of people do a lot, is they're if they're trying to save a document and have it be unique, that it's got a little timestamp on it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's all possible. And then what we've also got is the ability to do these outside of the form as well. So you'll notice in here, if I was to select multiple expense reports, so we'll choose all four, I could choose print expense report. And what we're going to get is four open up. So there they are appearing along the bottom of the page. And these could be, remember, generated into a library. They don't actually have to be open. So if you needed to store something as a record or something like that and have a workflow trigger as a result of those being generated, that's something that you could do. So how that one's created, it's exactly the same, by the way. So if I open that up, it's using the same template. There we go. So there's my my expense report again. So yeah, the way that that's generated is a separate product called List Actions. We bundle it with Lightning Forms as well, but you can go through into List Actions and create yourself a button, command bar button. So if I wanted this to, I'll just say print or print report. Again, we could choose an icon. So whichever icon we want to select here. And we can choose whether that's going to run against the current list or a single selected item or selected items. So you can choose what that's going to be triggered on. So I'll say selected items, let's say. Again, you've got a visible expression for when that's going to display, and then we can put that generate document in here, and it can run exactly the same way as the previous one did.
Very cool.
So yeah, a couple of different ways of achieving that.
That is really neat. I mean, that's something that people have been asking for a while, to be able to generate a document that isn't, or to be able to print something that isn't just a screenshot, really, of the form.
Yeah, we get regular requests for being able to print them or to be able to save as PDF and so on. And the nice thing about opening it up in Word is you've got from Word the ability to do all of those things. So yeah, you could save it as a PDF if you wanted to. You could print it. You could share it with somebody, email as attachments, etc. So
yeah. Nice.
So yeah, it's a really cool feature.
Yeah,
So,
I think this is going to be popular.
absolutely right. So fantastic. That's Lightning Forms.
All right. Well, thanks
Well,
very much
sorry,
for that.
the
Yeah, that's
document
document generator. Yeah.
generator.
Yeah, thank you so much. And how can people, well, so we're going to have a webinar about this coming up in, at this point when this is available in a little over a week. And so you'll be going through Lightning Forms in general in that webinar, right? And then also the document generator, and people could ask questions, but of course, if anybody has any questions now, you could just post them on our video and we'll be sure to answer them.
Absolutely, that sounds great.
And is there a free trial available of this? I mean, you really have to have either Lightning Forms or Lightning List Actions to use the document generator, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. You can't use it on
go
its own, so it's premium action. But yeah, you could use it with either of those two, and the trial will be built into Lightning Forms. So yeah, absolutely, you could use it from there.
Very cool. All right. Well, it's been great talking to you again. And
likewise.
I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.
Bye.